Parliamentary Elections. A spokesman for the opposition Maldivian Democratic Party has told his programme he doesn't believe the elections will be free and fair. The Maldives have had one-party rule since President Gayoom came to power in 1978. In June of this year, Mr. Gayoom proposed a series of constitutional reforms, including term limits for the presidency and a separation of powers between the executive and legislature. In August, a protest by several thousand people calling for more democracy and the release of political prisoners turned violent, and a state of emergency was imposed. Although it was later lifted, the opposition says some of its supporters are still in detention. Well, in a moment, I'll be talking to Shaheed, the chief government spokesman for the Maldives. But first, a little earlier, I spoke to Moosa from the opposition Maldivian Democratic Party, and I asked him if he believed that this month's elections will be free and fair.
Absolutely not, because our members, some of our members are still detained, still arrested, and they're being taken to court, and they're being unlawfully detained in jail and even in house arrest. Some of the key members we have who are going to be standing for this election have been forcefully told not to withdraw their candidacy, and also the government candidates have been canvassing and lobbying all around the country when it's illegal to do that until your name is announced. Now also our MPs, our candidates are not allowed to have funds freely through, even sponsors are being threatened that if they fund any of the reformist candidates or any of the anti-government candidates, then they will come into trouble with the government.
So are you saying there's going to be no representation from the opposition?
There will be. We do have people standing for each constituency, but obviously with our limited resources, we are unable to make a greater impact. I mean, something like 15 to 20 members who've been harassed, who've been detained by this government, will not be able to make a stand this time around. And in any case, we will try our best, but with the history of rigging and cheating in the ballots, we don't expect it to be any different from previous ones.
You say history of rigging and cheating, but given that a lot of international attention has been on the Maldives recently, don't you think the elections will be more free and fair, and in the end it's up to the voters to decide?
It certainly will be this time around, because in previous years, in previous elections, they can simply just lock up somebody for 6 months, for 4 months, until the election is over, and then release him and get their candidates out. But this time around, of course, we have the European community, we have the British government saying that this is what we'll be testing Gayoom on. This election will testify to Gayoom's intention for reform. What we are trying to say is that after 26 years of absolute autocratic rule and dictatorship and total use of military against us, we can't expect him to actually reform our country. It's time he steps down, it's time he resigns, and we will be getting ourselves into government, and we can sort out this problem in the Maldives.
What more can the international community be doing?
I think international pressure alone is enough to oust Gayoom, because he has really not been able to digest the opposition and the criticism that's been thrown at him. Not from just us, even BBC. He has blasted BBC, he has blasted the Amnesty International. Every single person who says anything against him is apparently lying, and that's just his way of dealing with it. But he's been telling the local population that he's going to reform, but since July, since the reform debates in June and July, we had the Constitutional Assembly, nothing has happened.
Moosa, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Well, I'm joined now in the studio by Shaheed, Chief Government Spokesman for the Maldives. Thank you very much for coming in. Lots of assertions made there by Moosa. Let's start with his first, that the elections won't be free and fair because over a dozen very prominent members of the opposition are still in custody.
That figure is absolutely untrue. Only 2 persons in detention have filed papers for the elections, and they will be allowed to contest the seats they've applied for. A person seeking public office in the Maldives should not regard themselves to be above the law. The 2 in question have been detained over very serious public disorder offences. And to put this in perspective, we have about 156 candidates contesting just 42 seats, and it's a very hotly contested election.
So, say these 2 people then, it's 4 months since the demonstration, why are they still in custody?
Well, one of these people actually is facing charges and will be given a free and fair trial, and as will others be. The reason why they are still in custody is because the offences that they have committed require preventive detention, and they are now in detention by judicial warrant. And just yesterday they were produced before a judge who authorized their detention for a further period of 10 to 15 days.
But I mean, the whole point is that there are other members of the opposition still in custody. You say 2 have filed papers, but perhaps the others have not filed papers because they're in custody.
Well, every person, whether they were in custody or not, had the opportunity to file papers. Now, the Commonwealth practice is if you are in detention, you could always file papers and contest seats. There are 3 persons of those who were arrested after the August who have filed papers, and they will be allowed to contest the elections. Mind you, there has been a sea change in the Maldives over the past year or so, and those who have chosen to live abroad may not be fully aware of the extent and scale and scope of the change or the commitment of the government to succeed in the reform program.
Okay, so are you confident that these elections are going to be free and fair?
Absolutely. The government is delighted the elections are taking place. Since the early 90s, every election has been monitored by independent observers, and this time around we have increased the number to include the Commonwealth observers as monitors for the election as well. We would like to see a free and fair election. We would like to see no violence, no intimidation, no disinformation, and no financial pressures on voters.